Welcome back to Thrive, your go-to channel for transforming health, revolutionizing indoor air quality, and visionary environments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below to let us know your thoughts.
And now it's Matthew Riley, the party of parenting change.
Thanks, Lydia. It's always really hard to go after someone such as Ted, applied and a public servant, a career public servant. I think Ted, along with I think my 11th minister, that I have advised throughout my career closely. Almost every time I went to them, I would say that I thought I was providing irresistible advice. Clearly I wasn't, but sometimes I did. And I think the points that you made were very pertinent into what represents irresistible advice. When I was thinking about what to say here as a medium, I was going to focus a bit on outside the government and focus a little bit on the market and the market's response. Because while public servants may be providing irresistible advice or trying to provide irresistible advice to decision makers within government, we're not the only sources of advice. And as an aside, I think we're becoming marginalised in some of the advice that we provide to ministers in how it's held by the ministers. Often, ministers and their advisors will hold advice from others in higher stead than advice that comes from their departments and public servants, which I think is a critical issue for us to do as a society. We want to have a very strong functioning democracy into the future. But one of the things that I've seen over my career is the power of being able to talk about how markets can help sway decision makers, but can also curtail good outcomes. And I wanted to talk about two examples. One where market and market domination actually led to bad outcomes, even though we attempted to make small steps. And another where we started with small steps and achieved very great outcomes because of the market. And the first one is to do with fuel vapour at power station, petrol stations. Many years ago, we started with the problem of recovering vapour from our petrol stations because of its impact on air quality. And yet, we started with the first issue, which was how do we just stop vapour from the underground tanks being vented to the atmosphere when those tanks are being filled up by a petrol tanker. And this is what we call stage one vapour recovery, and everyone agreed that this was simple enough. We designed and regulated a solution for stage one vapour recovery. Within our field, we then turn back and say, okay, well, what's the next task that we have to attack? And of course, our colleagues in the US, in particular in California, were early adopters of this, and this is stage two vapour recovery. So that's ensuring that we capture the fumes that come from our fuel tank when it's empty and we fill it up. Now we ran into a problem in Australia. And the problem we ran into was due to market advice and market power. Very small number of suppliers of pumps at petrol stations. Very strong industry voice for petrol stations advocating against additional costs being put on petrol stations. We listened to that and went, okay, that's okay, we hear this, but we can still try and craft out a solution. Let's defer action in some places. So we'll focus on the cities first and we'll leave regional towns aside. Then there was some pushback on the regional. Well, it's still going to be hard. We don't have the supply chain. It's going to cost more. And that led to deferred time. And each time the issue came up on stage two vapour recovery, it was pushed down the road. And of course, during that time, what was happening? We were building more and more service stations. We were replacing old service stations. And we were replacing them with pumps that did not have stage two vapour recovery, even though they were the standard pump in North America and Europe. And that was because of a market pushing back and advising the ministers that this would be too costly, utilising their power to defer action, even though we'd taken a very considered step-by-step approach. We didn't even really get to the point where we wanted to talk about what stage 3 vapour recovery looks like on board vapour recovery and its effectiveness. Of course, our motor vehicle manufacturers overseas were well ahead on that. And of course, now we're staring down electric vehicles where vapour recovery isn't an issue. So I sit there and think about how the market may have responded there. That's a victory for them. They managed to defer this so long that they don't have to really act to it. That's the best outcome for a perverse, for a market player who wants to pervert the decision-making process. We have to be aware of that, even if we're mapping out small steps, because we started by mapping out small steps. That was the first thing we gave up. Not the big idea, but let's go to the small steps. And we were thwarted. So I often think about that, and I'm going to contrast that with another area where the market worked really well. And we started with a big idea, but still fairly small steps. And it led to really good outcomes, and greater outcomes than we'd ever imagined. And some outcomes we didn't even imagine. In New South Wales, we had a white certificate trading scheme to do, originally called the Energy Savings Scheme, which came out of our greenhouse gas reduction scheme, GGAS, the world's first, I must say. New South Wales had the world's first mandated emission trading scheme in New South Wales, and we had a white certificate component of it. The white certificate component was based on energy efficiency, really good solution for the decision makers. We want to put in place a trading scheme that saves people money, because if you're using less energy, you're going to save money. We had a number of rules in place that allowed the market to come up with solutions, and one of the first things they came up with was compact fluorescent light bulbs. And they did their sums, the market did their sums, and they actually came up with the fact that if they gave these away to households, they could still make money. Why? Because we technicians and scientists, we got our calculations a little bit wrong on how many certificates we should provide people for compact fluorescent giveaways. That's okay. What happened is, prior to our white certificate scheme, compact fluorescent light bulbs were very expensive and very hard to come by in Australia, in New South Wales. By putting this scheme in place and supporting the market to come up with solutions, innovative market operators saw an opportunity and started to bring huge volumes of compact fluorescent light bulbs into the country. They gave away the vast amount of them. That led to two things. One, it meant that we, as consumers, became familiar with compact fluorescent light bulbs. They weren't some strange, weird, hippie, green thing with substandard light. It became something that was a bit more. But importantly, what it did is it allowed the supply chains for compact fluorescent light bulbs to be established. Because prior to our white certificate scheme, it was a niche area. There wasn't strong supply chains. So it led to a total change in the lighting market. We actually extended that change because there had a whole bunch of industrial lighting that came under our white certificate scheme and energy savings scheme as well. So what I wanted to have this one contrast with the first one is we had a market with some innovative players. We also had a market where people were willing to try things. And we had a market with a fairly broad market base. It wasn't constrained. Contrast that with the vapour recovery side of things. If I look at our challenges here, I see many of the things that can help us in the same way. We can start by working with the market. We see a lot of market participants here. We can work on small, innovative steps. We can use existing trading schemes. We can use existing certification schemes to help drive the outcomes that we want to achieve. But we need to do that working with the market. And we also need to do that in an advisory role to governments so that they are not only getting the market's advice, get some independent advice as well. But if you do it right, we can work with the markets, we can support innovation, we can support it to the point where if you have compact fluorescent codes, we mandated our incandescence. We would have never been able to mandate our incandescence if we hadn't put the supply chains in place for that kind of service. Think about that. That's what we can do. Little steps, innovative players, work it up where it becomes an irresistible solution to say that you just date this out. That's a no-brainer. So, you do that.